Okay, let's kick things off with a bit of a thought experiment.
Yeah.
Imagine you wake up, stark room, totally unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
You hear a language outside you don't get, and there's this like heavy bolted door.
Hmm.
Now, if you could call just one person anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
who do you instinctively feel could actually figure a way out of that? That feeling right there, that gut instinct about who could maybe bend reality a little. That's kind of our starting point today.
Yeah.
High agency.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been really diving into George Mack's work on highagency.com, and it's one of those concepts, it hits you on a gut level.
Right.
It's not something you can easily just like list out in bullet points, but you definitely know it when you see it. That sort of drive, that certain something. It lets people not just, navigate the world, but actually shape it in surprising ways sometimes.
Yeah.
And Mack suggests that really getting this quality might be pretty crucial for understanding how things actually work, especially now in the 21st century.
It's interesting. It's not just about being an optimist or a pessimist, is it? It seems to cut across all sorts of different people, different backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's, a deeper capacity.
Totally.
And so in this deep dive, we're going to try and unpack what Mack sees as the core ingredients, things like thinking clearly, having this kind of natural bias towards doing something, taking action, and interestingly, being willing to disagree sometimes. We'll explore how these things kind of come together in people who don't just, react to stuff, but really seem to grab the steering wheel.
Let's jump right back to that jail cell question then, because Mack uses it, like you said, to tap straight into that innate sense we have about agency.
Yeah.
It's about pinpointing that person you genuinely believe has the resourcefulness, the sheer will maybe, to tackle something that just looks completely impossible. What kind of person popped into your head when you thought about it?
For me, it's definitely someone who wouldn't just sit there. You know, they wouldn't just accept it. They'd be immediately looking for levers, poking around, searching for possibilities that maybe 99% of people would just miss.
Right, that proactive searching.
Yeah, and Mack gives some really great visuals for this. There's this meme he uses contrasting like passive acceptance versus actively trying to change things.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And then there's that high agency in a moment thing, that picture of August Landmesser, you know the one, refusing the Nazi salute in that huge crowd.
Wow, yeah, that image is unforgettable.
It's just such a powerful snapshot, isn't it? Individual just standing against this massive tide.
Yeah.
The key there is just that stark difference between just going with the flow versus, standing firm on your own principles no matter what.
And the flip side he offers, that low agency in a moment, really makes the distinction super clear.
The suitcases.
Yeah. The suitcases. How long did we not have wheels on suitcases? It seems ridiculous now. And he puts that next to the just immense ambition of landing people on the moon.
It's such a great contrast.
It really is. One shows us just passively putting up with inconvenience year after year, while the other is this radical rejection of what people thought was possible. The takeaway there is really about spotting those times when we kind of collectively just accept a situation that's not great.
Yeah, the status quo.
Exactly. Versus when we decide, nope, we're aiming for something truly transformative.
Okay, so moving on to actually spotting these high agency people. Nassim Taleb throws in some really interesting, maybe even counterintuitive ideas here.
He does, yeah. Some might surprise you.
Like weird teenage hobbies. What's that about? It's not just being different for the sake of it, is it?
No, I don't think so. It's more about having that that internal compass early on. Pursuing things you're genuinely interested in, even if your friends think it's weird, even if it goes against the social grain.
So it suggests maybe an early independence of thought?
I think that's spot on. Resisting that pressure to just conform. Someone with a weird hobby back then probably learned to value their own curiosity more than just fitting in, and that could be a pretty strong sign of independent action later,
Makes sense.
Then Taleb talks about treadmill energy. You know those people.
Oh, yeah. You feel it when you're around them.
Exactly. That sort of contagious enthusiasm, that drive. It's not just that they have energy, but somehow they amplify it in everyone else around them.
Right. They pull you along.
It's like they generate their own momentum.
You leave feeling more energized, not drained. I like that. And what about unpredictable opinions?
Ah, yeah. The boxer who writes poetry example.
Or the scientist who's deeply into art history or something.
Right. It points to a mind that isn't just stuck in one box, not defined just by their job or the usual stereotypes. They draw from different places, different interests, and that lets them form these unique perspectives.
So high agency often comes from kind of synthesizing different worlds.
That seems to be the insight, yeah. mixing things up.
Okay, the immigrant mentality is another one he mentions. That feels powerful.
It really is. It highlights the agency needed just to recognize when you need a massive change, like moving countries.
Yeah.
And then the sheer resourcefulness to actually do it and the adaptability to, make it work in a totally new place. Starting over somewhere unfamiliar just demands so much proactive problem solving.
So the takeaway isn't just literally about moving.
No, I think it's about that mindset. Resourcefulness, adaptability, tackling new challenges, even if you stay exactly where you are, it's that approach.
Gotcha. Then there are some subtler ones, like sending niche content. What's the thinking there?
It's maybe a bit subtle, yeah, but it suggests someone who focuses on genuine quality and specific interests rather than just chasing what's popular or trendy right now.
So they trust their own judgment.
Exactly. They spot value, maybe see emerging ideas before the mainstream does. They're confident enough to operate outside the usual echo chamber.
And the next one sounds almost contradictory. Me to your face, nice behind your back.
Huh. Yeah, it does sound a bit odd at first. But I think it suggests a willingness to give honest, direct feedback, even if it's uncomfortable.
Instead of just being nicey nice and then gossiping later.
Right. It takes a certain agency to prioritize what you think is true or helpful in the long run over just, short-term social comfort or approval. We're playing a different game, maybe.
That makes sense. Quitting something of prestige is another big one. Walking away from a path everyone else admires.
Yeah, leaving that secure, admired job or field to chase something more authentic to them, even if it costs them socially, even if people think they're failing.
That takes guts.
It really does. It shows they value their own fulfillment, that intrinsic drive, more than just what looks good on paper.
Okay, distrusting and verifying. This feels absolutely critical, especially today.
Oh, totally. It's about refusing to just passively soak up information. It's asking those basic questions. Okay, who's saying this? Where's the actual evidence? What's the science behind that claim?
Not just taking things at face value.
Exactly. It's active engagement, demanding first principles instead of just, swallowing narratives whole. This really ties into that clear thinking aspect of high agency we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Self-taught learning machines. I like that phrase.
Me too. It captures that internal drive, doesn't it? To just constantly acquire knowledge, pick up new skills on your own without waiting for a course or someone telling you to.
It's just pure curiosity driving them.
Right. They're always exploring, always mastering new things.
And the last one Taleb mentions, questioning the question.
Ah, yes. This goes even deeper, I think. It's the ability to step back and ask, hang on, is the problem we're trying to solve even the right problem?
So not just jumping to find an answer, but making sure you're asking the right thing in the first place.
Exactly. It's about thinking strategically, prioritizing effectively. It's a higher level of agency.
Okay, so putting these together, you really start to see this picture emerge. It's a bundle of traits pointing towards someone who's fundamentally proactive, independent, thinks critically.
Yeah, that kind of approach to the world.
And this leads us to Mack's idea of the high agency spectrum.
Yes. And he uses that great analogy, the tap versus the glass half full or half empty.
Right. Optimism, pessimism versus something else.
Exactly. Optimism and pessimism are basically passive views on reality, right? The glass looks like this, but high agency positions you as the active force. You're the tap. You can influence the flow. You can actively fill the glass.
So it's about seeing your own potential to actually change the situation, not just observe it or have an opinion about it.
That's the core idea, recognizing your power to influence things.
It's that fundamental shift, isn't it? Moving from feeling like life just sort of happens to you to realizing that, no, you are actively happening to life. You're the one initiating the agent of change, not just passively receiving whatever comes along.
And that Eric Weinstein quote really nails it. When someone tells a high agency person, that's impossible, they don't just hear, okay, full stop. They hear the start of a second dialogue.
A second dialogue, meaning?
Meaning an active search kicks off in their head. Okay, why is it impossible? What are the constraints? Are there workarounds? What alternative paths haven't been considered? It's not the end, it's the beginning of the problem-solving process.
Wow. It's that refusal to just accept limitations as fixed walls. seeing a challenge not as a roadblock, but as like an invitation to get creative.
Spot on. And this flows right into what Matt calls the high agency software, these 5 core beliefs that seem to be running in the background for high agency folks.
Okay, let's break those down. The first one sounds huge. There's no unsolvable problem.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful, but with one really crucial caveat.
Which is?
As long as it doesn't fundamentally break the laws of physics.
Oh, okay. So within physical possibility.
Exactly. Mack's point is, if something is physically possible, then it's not inherently unsolvable. Even if we don't know how yet, even if everyone else thinks it's impossible. It's about challenging those assumed constraints. The key is distinguishing between literally impossible according to physics and just really, really hard or currently unsolved.
That Claude Shannon and Ed Thorpe roulette story is just brilliant for this.
Isn't it? They looked at this game of pure chance, seemingly random,
And asked,
does the outcome violate physics? The answer was no. So what did they do?
they literally built a wearable computer back then to predict the outcome and beat the casino.
That's taking agency to a whole other level, refusing to accept the randomness at face value.
And David Deutsch's asteroid analogy, penguins versus humans.
Right. If an asteroid was heading for penguins, well, we could probably calculate their odds based on physics. It's pretty fixed.
But for humans,
Our agency, our capacity to innovate, to problem solve, it makes those kinds of predictions almost meaningless. If we choose a low agency response, just passively wait. Well, the outcome might be predictable and bad.
but high agency opens up possibilities.
Exactly. Possibilities for solutions we can't even conceive of right now. It's about recognizing the sheer power of human ingenuity when we decide to use it.
Okay, belief number 2 in the software stack. There's no way. What does that mean?
This one's about ditching the idea that there's only one single, correct, predetermined path to get somewhere or achieve something.
Like there's only one right way.
Precisely. Think about the tennis example Mac uses. Nadal, Djokovic, Federer.
3 absolute legends.
Totally. All reach the very top of their sport, but with wildly different training styles, different warm-ups, different approaches.
Right, they didn't all follow the exact same manual.
Not at all. They each found what worked best for them. They didn't stick rigidly to some theoretical right way. The takeaway is that often, effectiveness beats sticking to some prescribed method just because. Find your way.
And the story about Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan writing those iconic songs.
Hallelujah, and just like a woman, yeah. One took years of painstaking craft. The other supposedly came in a burst of inspiration.
Completely different processes.
So both led to masterpieces. It highlights that individuality, that flexibility that's part of high agency. Find your process your way.
Okay, the third belief. This one feels potentially controversial. There are no adults.
Huh. Yeah, it's provocative, isn't it?
What's the core idea? It's not just being cynical or disrespectful, sure.
Oh, no, not at all. It's more about challenging that deep-seated idea we often have, maybe from childhood, of this superior, all-knowing adult class.
The ones who have all the answers, who'll fix everything.
Exactly. It's about dismantling that sort of Peter Pan complex where we're waiting for the grown-ups to sort it out. It's recognizing that everyone, even the people we admire or who are in charge, are just fallible human beings figuring things out as they go.
It humanizes them.
Totally. And Matt gives that almost funny list of examples. Steve Jobs making questionable health choices.
Mozart being terrible with money.
Isaac Newton obsessed with alchemy. Napoleon's interesting hygiene requests.
Right, yeah.
Even figures like Nietzsche struggling with rejection and low sales. Henry Ford's awful anti-Semitic campaigns. Martin Luther King Jr.'s affairs. Tesla loving a pigeon. Dostoevsky gambling.
Okay, point taken. Even the greats were flawed humans.
Exactly. Nobody is perfect. Nobody has all the answers. And realizing that is actually empowering. It means you can stop waiting for some mythical authority figure to swoop in and solve your problems. You have to take ownership.
So message is kind of like, kill your gurus. Don't put anyone on an untouchable pedestal.
That's a big part of it. That belief that the adults aren't going to save you, they don't even exist, is a really strong call for personal responsibility, for your own agency.
Okay, software piece number 4 tackles our social side. There's no normal.
This goes right at that powerful desire most of us have to just fit in, to be liked.
Which can sometimes hold us back, right?
Yeah.
Make us suppress our individuality.
Absolutely. Mack talks about the normal paradox. We try so hard to act normal to be accepted, but actually, it's often our unique quirks or sometimes weird behaviors that people remember and connect with.
That's interesting, like at funerals.
Exactly. Think about it. When people share memories, what do they talk about? Not how perfectly
Uh-huh.
normal someone was.
No, they tell the funny stories, the quirky things, the unconventional stuff.
Right. The things that made that person uniquely them. So trying to hide your individuality to conform might feel safer, maybe, in the moment, but in the long run, it often just makes you forgettable.
So the insight is kind of embrace the weirdness. It can actually be a strength.
Yeah. Or at least don't be afraid of it. Your individuality, even the odd bits, can be a source of connection and, well, agency.
All right, the final piece of the software puzzle, perhaps the most immediate one. There's only now.
This one really hits home, doesn't it? It's about the fleeting nature of this exact moment. The past, just memory. The future, just a projection, an idea.
All we actually have is right now.
That's it. And Mack uses that incredibly powerful Kevin Smith story.
About his father.
Yeah. His dad apparently spent his whole life playing it safe, avoiding risks, and then died screaming. Smith said it was his brutal wake-up call about the urgency of pursuing your dreams, of taking action now, because there's just no guarantee of later, no promise of more time. It really hammers home that bias for action, doesn't it? Don't wait.
Okay, so these 5 beliefs really underpin the high agency mindset. And this brings us to who Mack nominates as potentially the highest agency human ever.
Wilbur Wright.
Wilbur Wright. Okay, tell us that story, because it's pretty incredible.
It truly is. Here's a guy, promising future, gets derailed by a really bad hockey injury. Serious nervous system problems follow.
Oh, wow.
And at the same time, his mother is terminally ill. You'd think, okay, recipe for despair, right?
Absolutely.
But instead, he gets intensely focused on this seemingly impossible dream, human flight. Obsessed with watching birds.
And what's striking is how methodical he was, especially back then, pre-internet and all that.
Totally. He wasn't just daydreaming. He was relentlessly hunting down knowledge.
Yeah.
Writing letters, actual letters, to libraries, to the Smithsonian, gathering everything he could find on birds, physics, mechanics.
He reasoned it out.
Yeah, his logic was kind of, okay, birds fly. Flying doesn't defy physics, therefore humans can fly. Therefore I, Wilbur Wright, can figure out how to fly.
That self-belief is incredible.
And then the partnership with his brother, Orville, that just screams bias for action. They didn't just sit around theorizing forever. They started building gliders, testing, experimenting immediately.
And they hit roadblocks, right? Lots of them.
Oh, constantly. Finding the right location for testing, they needed specific wind conditions, so they had to reverse engineer that, contact the Weather Bureau, identify Kitty Hawk. Then the sheer distance to get there.
They didn't just ruminate on how hard it would be.
Nope. Just figured out how to get there. Then the massive problem of controlling the aircraft, inventing the whole wing warping system, building their own wind tunnel to test designs. And they couldn't find an engine light enough.
So
They designed and built their own custom aluminum engine. The resourcefulness is just off the charts.
And the locals thought they were crazy.
Completely. Mack shares that anecdote about people calling them the 2 poor nuts. It just shows how far outside conventional thinking they were operating. High agency often looks like madness to the status quo.
But even Wilbur had moments of doubt.
He did. There's that famous quote attributed to him after a setback, "Not in 1,000 years will man fly."
Ouch. That must have been a low point.
You'd think, but apparently the very next morning, he was back out there working on the machine, problem solving again.
That resilience.
It's defining, isn't it? That unwavering focus on the problem, even when things look bleak. That's high agency sticking with it.
And then, December 17th, 1903, they actually did it.
They did. Orville flew first, then Wilbur managed a longer flight later that day. And think about the impact from those 2 nuts on a beach.
To billions of passenger flights every year now.
It's an almost unbelievable testament to what high agency can achieve. It fundamentally changed everything. So Mack's question back to the jail cell, would you call Wilbur? It really puts his agency level in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
So, okay, if this is so powerful, the big question becomes, how do we get more of it? How do we cultivate high agency in ourselves?
Right. And that leads Mack into discussing escaping low agency traps. Because let's face it, for many of us, low agency can kind of be the default setting sometimes.
He calls it a prison of the mind.
Yeah, which is a great way to put it. No physical bars, no guards, but just as restricting. He outlines 5 common mental traps we fall into and, crucially, how to get out of them.
Okay, let's hit him. Trap number 1, the vague trap. What does that look like?
This is when problems just stay fuzzy, ill-defined. They float around as these vague anxieties or frustrations. I'm unhappy, my career isn't right, but you never actually nail down what the specific issue is.
So you can't really tackle it.
Exactly. The escape route is surprisingly simple, but powerful. Define the problem clearly. Get it out of your head. Write it down. Draw a map or a diagram. Talk it through with someone. Make them ask clarifying questions. Just the act of externalizing those vague feelings forces clarity. You need specific questions, not vague feelings. Instead of, I hate my job, try, what 3 specific tasks drain my energy the most each week? That's a starting point.
Makes sense. Okay, trap number 2, the midwit trap. Sounds kind of harsh.
Yeah, the name is a bit blunt. But the idea is that we often tend to overcomplicate things. We get stuck in complex analysis and miss the simple, often more elegant solution.
So how do we avoid overcomplicating?
The escape hatch is to try thinking like the guy on the left in that meme, the one who sees the straightforward path. Mack suggests using inversion.
Inversion, flipping it.
Yeah. Ask yourself, how could I actively make this problem worse? Thinking about how to guarantee failure often, counterintuitively, highlights the simple, effective actions you should be taking.
Give me an example.
Okay, say a writer is blocked. Instead of agonizing over the perfect sentence, they ask, how could I ensure I write nothing good? Answers might be, don't write consistently, make it boring, never finish anything.
So the inverse is the solution. Write consistently, make it interesting, finish things.
Exactly. Inversion cuts through the complexity.
Got it. Trap 3, the attachment trap, being stuck on old ideas.
Yeah, clinging to past assumptions or ways of thinking, even when they clearly aren't working anymore, or the situation has changed, we get attached to how we think things should be.
How do we break free from that?
The escape here involves a really powerful question. What would I do right now if I had, say, 10 times the agency?
10 times, wow.
Yeah, it's meant to be radical. It forces you to mentally break free from those comfortable, limiting assumptions and consider completely different, much bolder approaches you wouldn't normally allow yourself to think about.
Like imagining an evil twin version of yourself.
Kind of. Mack mentions that too. What outlandish but maybe effective things would your super high agency twin try? It shakes things loose.
Okay, trap 4, the rumination trap. I think a lot of people know this one. Analysis paralysis.
Oh, yeah. That endless loop of thinking, overthinking, weighing options, but never actually doing anything.
How do we break that cycle?
The key is shifting focus, away from endless contemplation towards immediate, even tiny action. Ask, what is the absolute smallest next step I can take on this right now?
Make it concrete.
Yes. And reframing helps too. Stop seeing decisions as these huge, permanent, high-stakes choices. Think of them more like experiments.
Experiments.
Yeah, like Mack's example. Instead of planning the perfect optimal trip from Doncaster to New York down to the last detail, just book the first train ticket out of Doncaster. Get moving. You can figure out the next step once you're in motion. Any action, even small, breaks the paralysis and creates momentum.
I like that. Less pressure. Okay, final trap, the overwhelm trap. When the problem just seems too big.
Right. The sheer scale of it just leaves you feeling paralyzed, like, where would I even start?
What's the antidote?
Break it down relentlessly. Find the absolute smallest, most manageable first step. Mack uses the analogy of a badly designed video game where level 100 looks impossible.
You don't start there.
Exactly. You find level 1. What's the absolute minimum action you can take to just begin? Chunk it down into bite-sized pieces you can handle.
Like the quantum mechanics example.
Perfect example. Want to learn quantum mechanics? Seems overwhelming. Okay, level 1, make a list of core topics. Level 2, find 3 recommended intro books online. Level 3, order 1 book. Level 4, read the first chapter. Tiny steps build momentum and make the impossible feel possible.
Okay, so escaping these traps is key, which brings us to the final, really practical part, turning bullshit into reality.
Yeah, which is basically Mack's way of saying, okay, enough theory, let's actually do something to increase your agency. And he reminds us again, the adults don't exist.
So it's up to us.
It's up to us. He offers this really simple, but I think profound exercise.
Lay it on me.
Okay, blank page. Write down a core value you hold, maybe something a bit esoteric, like high agency itself or creativity or courage.
Oh.
Then brainstorm 10 specific concrete actions you could take today or this week that would embody that value. Actions, not just thoughts.
10 specific actions. Got it.
Pick one. Maybe pick the one that feels a little scary, the one that pushes your comfort zone.
Uh-huh.
Break that action down into the tiniest possible micro steps. What's the absolute first physical thing you need to do?
Make it super small.
Super small. And then this is the crucial bit. Do that first micro step right now, or as close to now as humanly possible.
Don't wait.
Don't wait. And then just notice how that feels. That little jolt, that's the feeling of agency, of being alive, of taking control.
And repeat.
Repeat daily. It
Yeah.
shifts you away from just having a passive to-do list towards actively creating your life based on your values. It's a different model.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
He also offers the specific tools for getting unstuck, right?
He does. 5 quick ones. The high agency flowchart we sort of talked about that helps you diagnose which trap you're in and suggests escape routes.
Okay. What else?
The Swedish House Mafia technique, which sounds fun.
What is it?
It's basically get a small group of smart people together, people you trust, clearly define the problem or goal, then just brainstorm like crazy, no bad ideas, and then key part, commit to taking action immediately on the best ideas that come out of it. Collaborative agency, rapid action.
Nice. Then the Story Raiser. Intriguing name.
Yeah, this one's more intuitive. When you're facing a decision, multiple paths you could take, ask yourself, which of these options makes for the better story?
The better story.
Yeah. Which path feels more like growth, more interesting, more aligned with the kind of life narrative you want to be living? Amjad Masad, founder of Replit, apparently says, do it for the plot.
Do it for the plot. I love that.
That's a great heuristic, right?
Yeah.
Choose the path that makes your life story more compelling.
Okay, 2 more tools. Derek Sievert's method for asking for help.
Right. Sivers suggests that before you actually ask someone for help or advice, first, write down a really clear description of your problem. Then, try to genuinely predict what advice that specific person would give you if you asked them.
Predict their advice.
Yeah. Often, just the act of clearly formulating the problem and then stepping into their shoes to anticipate their perspective helps you figure out the answer yourself. You clarify your own thinking in the process.
That's clever. You might not even need to ask them in the end.
Exactly. And finally, the power of perspective.
A change of perspective is worth 50 IQ points.
That's the one. Mac tells that little story about the wealthy guy carefully parking his Rolls Royce.
While someone else just parks their regular car haphazardly nearby.
Right. The point isn't about the cars, it's that sometimes simply looking at a problem from a completely different angle, reframing it, can unlock solutions that were totally invisible before. It can feel like suddenly becoming smarter just by shifting perspective.
Okay, so bringing this all home then. High agency. It's not some magic power you're born with or without.
Not at all. It seems to be a learnable way of engaging with the world. It's about clear, independent thought.
That bias for action.
And yeah, that willingness to challenge things, to disagree constructively, to push past limits, especially the ones we put on ourselves.
Proactively solving problems, not just reacting.
Exactly. And those 5 core beliefs, that high agency software.
No unsolvable problems within physics,
Yeah.
no one way, no adults, no normal, only now.
They really feel like the foundation, don't they? The operating system that drives this whole approach.
Definitely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, that last one really does stick, doesn't it? There's only now.
Powerful reminder.
So maybe take a second now to think about what we've talked about. Consider your own sense of agency. Is there maybe just one small thing, one tiny action you could take today, right now, inspired by all this? What's one thing that's really sticking with you from this?
For me, honestly, it's that reminder that even the biggest, most overwhelming problems can usually be broken down, chunked down into something you can actually start working on. That feels really empowering. And hey, if you are curious and want to explore more, Mac's website, highagency.com, has that high agency library.
Right, lots more resources there.
Yeah, tons of stories, frameworks, examples. It's a really great place to keep digging into this idea and, maybe start practicing it more yourself.